Federalism. Overview. In the previous chapter, we noted that the vertical division of power among different levels of government is one of the major forms of power sharing in modern democracies. In this chapter, we focus on this form of power sharing. It is most commonly referred to as federalism. We begin by describing federalism in general terms. The rest of the chapter tries to understand the theory and practice of federalism in India. A discussion of the federal constitutional provisions is followed by an analysis of the policies and politics that have strengthened federalism in practice. Towards the end of the chapter, we turn to local government, a new and third tier of Indian federalism. A boy says, "I am confused. What do we call the Indian government? Is it union, federal, or central? What is federalism?" Let us get back to the contrast between Belgium and Sri Lanka that we saw in the last chapter. You would recall that one of the key changes made in the Constitution of Belgium was to reduce the power of the central government and to give these powers to the regional governments. Regional governments existed in Belgium even earlier. They had their roles and powers. But all these powers were given to these governments and could be withdrawn by the central government. The change that took place in 1993 was that the regional governments were given constitutional powers that were no longer dependent on the central government. Thus, Belgium shifted from a unitary to a federal form of government. Sri Lanka continues to be, for all practical purposes, a unitary system where the national government has all the powers. Tamil leaders want Sri Lanka to become a federal system. Federalism is a system of government in which power is divided between a central authority and various constituent units of the country. Usually, a federation has two levels of government. One is the government for the entire country that is usually responsible for a few subjects of common national interest. The other consists of governments at the level of provinces or states that look after much of the day-to-day administration of their state. Both these levels of government enjoy their powers independently of each other. Though only 25 of the world's 193 countries have federal political systems, their citizens make up 40% of the world's population. Most of the large countries of the world are federations. Can you notice an exception to this rule in this map? In this sense, federations are contrasted with unitary governments. Under the unitary system, either there is only one level of government or the subunits are subordinate to the central government. The central government can pass on orders to the provincial or local government. But in a federal system, the central government cannot order the state government to do something. The state government has powers of its own, for which it is not answerable to the central government. Both these governments are separately answerable to the people. Let us look at some of the key features of federalism. There are two or more levels, or tiers of government. Different tiers of government govern the same citizens, but each tier has its own jurisdiction in specific matters of legislation, taxation, and administration. The jurisdictions of the respective levels or tiers of government are specified in the Constitution. Therefore, the existence and authority of each tier of government is constitutionally guaranteed. The fundamental provisions of the Constitution cannot be unilaterally changed by one level of government. Such changes require the consent of both levels of government. Courts have the power to interpret the Constitution and the powers of different levels of government. The highest court acts as an umpire if disputes arise between different levels of government in the exercise of their respective powers. Sources of revenue for each level of government are clearly specified to ensure its financial autonomy. The federal system has dual objectives: to safeguard and promote the unity of the country, to accommodate regional diversity. Therefore, two aspects are crucial for the institutions and practice of federalism. Governments at different levels should agree to some rules of power sharing. They should also trust that each would abide by its part of the agreement. An ideal federal system has both aspects, mutual trust, and agreement to live together. A girl says, if federalism works only in big countries, why did Belgium adopt it? The exact balance of power between the central and the state governments varies from one federation to another. This balance depends mainly on the historical context in which the federation was formed. There are two kinds of routes through which federations have been formed. The first route involves independent states coming together on their own to form a bigger unit, so that by pooling sovereignty and retaining identity, they can increase their security. This type of coming together federation includes the USA, Switzerland, and Australia. In this category, all the constituent states usually have equal powers and are strong vis-à-vis the federal government. The second route is where a large country decides to divide its power between the constituent states and the national government. India, Spain, and Belgium are examples of this kind of holding together federation. In this category, the central government tends to be more powerful vis-à-vis the states. Very often, different constituent units of the federation have unequal powers. Some units are granted special powers. Glossary. Jurisdiction, the area over which someone has legal authority. The area may be defined in terms of geographical boundaries or in terms of certain kinds of subjects. Let us revise. Some Nepalese citizens were discussing the proposals on the adoption of federalism in their new constitution. This is what some of them said. Kog Raj, I don't like federalism. It would lead to reservation of seats for different caste groups as in India. Sarita, ours is not a very big country. We don't need federalism. Babu Lal, I am hopeful that the Terai areas will get more autonomy if they get their own state government. Ram Ganesh, I like federalism because it will mean that powers that were earlier enjoyed by the king will now be exercised by our elected representatives. If you were participating in this conversation, what would be your response to each of these? Which of these reflect a wrong understanding of what federalism is? What makes India a federal country? A boy says, isn't that strange? Did our constitution makers not know about federalism, or did they wish to avoid talking about it? We have earlier seen how small countries like Belgium and Sri Lanka face many problems of managing diversity. What about a vast country like India, with so many languages, religions, and regions? What are the power-sharing arrangements in our country? Let us begin with the Constitution. India had emerged as an independent nation after a painful and bloody partition. Soon after independence, several princely states became a part of the country. The Constitution declared India as a union of states. Although it did not use the word federation, the Indian Union is based on the principles of federalism. Let us go back to the 7 features of federalism mentioned above. We can see that all these features apply to the provisions of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution originally provided for a 2-tier system of government. The Union government, or central government, representing the Union of India. The state governments. Later, a 3rd tier of federalism was added in the form of panchayats and municipalities. As in any federation, these different tiers enjoy separate jurisdiction. The Constitution clearly provides a 3-fold distribution of legislative powers between the Union government and the state governments. Thus, it contains 3 lists. Union list. The Union list includes subjects of national importance, such as defense, foreign affairs, banking, communications, currency. These subjects require a uniform policy throughout the country. Only the Union government can make laws on these subjects. State list. The state list contains subjects of state and local importance, such as police, trade, commerce, agriculture, irrigation. Only the state governments can make laws on these subjects. Concurrent list. The concurrent list includes subjects of common interest to both the Union government and the state governments, such as education, forests, trade unions, merit, adoption, succession. Both the union government and the state governments can make laws on these subjects. If there is a conflict between the two laws, the law made by the union government prevails. What about subjects that do not fall under any of these three lists? Or subjects such as computer software that emerged after the Constitution was framed? According to the Constitution, the union government has the power to legislate on these residuary subjects. We noted earlier that most federations formed by the holding together root do not give equal powers to all constituent units. Thus, all states in the Indian Union do not have identical powers. Some states enjoy a special status. States such as Assam, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, and Mizoram enjoy special powers under Article 371 of the Constitution because of their unique social and historical circumstances. These special powers relate to protection of land rights of indigenous people, protection of their culture, preferential employment in government services. People who are not permanent residents of these states cannot buy land or houses there. Similar special provisions exist for some other states as well. There are some units of the Indian Union that enjoy very limited powers. These are areas that are too small to become independent states and could not be merged with any existing state. Such areas, like Chandigarh, Lakshadweep, and the National Capital Territory of Delhi, are called Union Territories. These territories do not have the powers of a state. The central government has special powers in administering these areas. This sharing of powers between the union government and the state governments is basic to the structure of the Constitution. It is not easy to make changes to this power-sharing arrangement. Parliament cannot change this arrangement on its own. Any change must first be passed by both houses of Parliament with at least a 2/3 majority. It must then be ratified by the legislatures of at least half of the total states. The judiciary plays an important role in overseeing the implementation of constitutional provisions and procedures. In case of any dispute regarding the division of powers, the high courts and the Supreme Court make the final decision. The union and state governments have the power to raise resources by levying taxes in order to carry on the government and discharge the responsibilities assigned to each of them. A girl says, "If agriculture and commerce are state subjects, why do we have ministers of agriculture and commerce in the union cabinet? Let us listen to the radio. Listen to one national and one regional news bulletin broadcast by All India Radio every day for 1 week. Make a list of news items related to government policies or decisions by classifying them into the following categories: news items that relate only to the central government, news items that relate only to your state government or any other state government, news items about the relationship between the central government and the state governments." Let us revise. Pokhran, the place where India conducted its nuclear tests, lies in Rajasthan. Suppose the government of Rajasthan was opposed to the central government's nuclear policy. Could it prevent the government of India from conducting the nuclear tests? Suppose the government of Sikkim plans to introduce new textbooks in its schools. But the union government does not like the style and content of the new textbooks. In that case, does the state government need to take permission from the union government before these textbooks can be introduced? Suppose the chief ministers of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha have different policies on how their state police should respond to the Naxalites. Can the Prime Minister of India intervene and pass an order that all the chief ministers will have to obey? This figure below is a political map of India in 1947, the year India became independent. It shows the country's boundaries at the time of independence, including the British provinces, princely states, and the territories affected by the partition. The shaded regions indicate the areas that became part of Pakistan, while the dotted regions represent the princely states and Indian protected states. The map highlights the political and administrative diversity that existed at independence, which made the integration of states and the adoption of a federal system an important challenge for the newly independent nation. How is federalism practiced? Constitutional provisions are necessary for the success of federalism, but they are not sufficient. If the federal experiment has succeeded in India, it is not merely because of the clearly laid out constitutional provisions. The real success of federalism in India can be attributed to the nature of democratic politics in our country. This ensured that the spirit of federalism, respect for diversity, and the desire for living together became shared ideals in our country. Let us look at some of the major ways in which this happened. Linguistic states. The creation of linguistic states was the first and a major test for democratic politics in our country. If you look at the political map of India when it began its journey as a democracy in 1947 and compare it with that of 2019, you will be surprised by the extent of the changes. Many old states have vanished, and many new states have been created. Areas, boundaries, and names of the states have been changed. In 1947, the boundaries of several old states of India were changed in order to create new states. This was done to ensure that people who spoke the same language lived in the same state. Some states were created not on the basis of language, but to recognize differences based on culture, ethnicity, or geography. These include states like Nagaland, Uttarakhand, and Jharkhand. Activity. Has your village, town, or city remained under the same state since independence? If not, what was the name of the earlier state? Can you identify the names of 3 states in 1947 that have been changed later? Identify any 3 states that have been carved out of bigger states. When the demand for the formation of states on the basis of language was raised, some national leaders feared that it would lead to the disintegration of the country. The central government resisted linguistic states for some time. But experience has shown that the formation of linguistic states has actually made the country more united. It has also made administration easier. Language policy. A boy says, "Why Hindi? Why not Bangla or Telugu?" A second test for Indian federalism is the language policy. Our Constitution did not give the status of national language to any one language. Hindi was identified as the official language. But Hindi is the mother tongue of only about 40% of Indians. Therefore, there were many safeguards to protect other languages. Besides Hindi, there are 21 other languages recognized as scheduled languages by the Constitution. A candidate appearing in an examination for central government services may choose to take the examination in any of these languages. States, too, have their own official languages. Much of the government work takes place in the official language of the concerned state. Unlike Sri Lanka, the leaders of our country adopted a very cautious approach in spreading the use of Hindi. According to the Constitution, the use of English for official purposes was to stop in 1965. However, many non-Hindi-speaking states demanded that the use of English should continue. In Tamil Nadu, this movement took a violent form. The central government responded by agreeing to continue the use of English, along with Hindi, for official purposes. Many critics think that this solution favored the English-speaking elite. Promotion of Hindi continues to be the official policy of the government of India. Promotion does not mean that the central government can impose Hindi on states where people speak a different language. The flexibility shown by Indian political leaders helped our country avoid the kind of situation that Sri Lanka experienced. Glossary. Coalition government. A government formed by the coming together of at least 2 political parties. Usually, the partners in a coalition form a political alliance and adopt a common program. Center-state relations. Restructuring center-state relations is one more way in which federalism has been strengthened in practice. How the constitutional arrangements for sharing power work in reality depends to a large extent on how the ruling parties and leaders follow these arrangements. For a long time, the same party ruled both at the center and in most of the states. This meant that the state governments did not exercise their rights as autonomous federal units. Whenever the ruling party at the state level was different, the parties ruling at the center tried to undermine the power of the states. In those days, the central government often misused the Constitution to dismiss state governments controlled by rival parties. This undermined the spirit of federalism. All this changed significantly after 1990. This period saw the rise of regional political parties in many states of the country. It was also the beginning of the era of coalition governments at the center. Since no single party secured a clear majority in the Lok Sabha, the major national parties had to form alliances with several regional parties to establish a government at the center. This led to a new culture of power sharing and respect for the autonomy of state governments. This trend was strengthened by a major judgment of the Supreme Court that made it difficult for the central government to dismiss state governments in an arbitrary manner. Thus, federal power sharing is more effective today than it was in the early years after the Constitution came into force. Figure 1. The states plead for more powers. Figure 2. Perils of running a coalition government. Here are two cartoons showing the relationship between the center and the states. Should the states go to the center with a begging bowl? How can the leader of a coalition keep the partners in the government satisfied? A girl says, "Are you suggesting that regionalism is good for our democracy? Are you serious?" Linguistic diversity of India. How many languages do we have in India? The answer depends on how one counts them. The latest information we have is from the Census of India 2011. This census recorded more than 1,300 distinct languages that people mentioned as their mother tongues. These languages were grouped under some major languages. For example, languages such as Bhojpuri, Magadhi, Bundelkhandi, Chhattisgarhi, Rajasthani, and many others were grouped under Hindi. Even after this grouping, the census found 121 major languages. Of these, 22 languages are included in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution and are therefore called scheduled languages. The remaining languages are called non-scheduled languages. In terms of languages, India is perhaps the most linguistically diverse country in the world. A look at the table makes it clear that no single language is the mother tongue of the majority of our population. The largest language, Hindi, is the mother tongue of only about 44% of Indians. Even if we include all those who know Hindi as their second or third language, the total was still less than 50% in 2011. As for English, only 0.02% of Indians recorded it as their mother tongue. Another 11% knew it as a second or third language. Read this table carefully, but you need not memorize it. Just do the following. Make a bar graph or pie chart based on this information. Prepare a map of the linguistic diversity of India by shading the regions where each of these languages is spoken. Find out about any 3 languages that are spoken in India but are not included in this table. Scheduled languages of India. Language proportion of speakers, %. Assamese 1, 26. Bengali 8, 03. Bodo 0, 12. Dogri 0, 21. Gujarati 4, 58. Hindi 43, 63. Kannada 3, 61. Kashmiri 0, 56. Konkani 0, 19. Maithili 1, 12. Malayalam 2, 88. Manipuri 0, 15. Marathi 6, 86. Nepali 0, 24. Odia 3, 10. Punjabi 2, 74. Sanskrit N. Santali 0, 61. Sindhi 0, 23. Tamil 5, 70. Telugu 6, 70. Urdu 4:19. N stands for negligible. Source: Census of India, 2011. Let us revise. Read the following excerpts from an article by noted historian Ramachandra Guha, published in the Times of India on 1 November 2006. The report of the States Reorganization Commission, SRC, was implemented exactly 50 years ago, on November 1, 1956. This, in its own time and in its own way, has also transformed the political and institutional life of the nation. Gandhi and other leaders promised their followers that when freedom came, the new nation would be based on a new set of provinces, these based on the principle of language. However, when India was finally freed in 1947, it was also divided. Partition was the consequence of a primordial attachment to one's faith. How many more partitions would that other primordial loyalty, language, lead to? So ran the thinking of Nehru, Patel, and Rajaji. Far from undermining Indian unity, linguistic states have helped strengthen it. It has proved to be perfectly consistent to be Kannada and Indian, Bengali and Indian, Tamil and Indian, Gujarati and Indian. To be sure, these states based on language sometimes quarrel with one another. While these disputes are not pretty, they could in fact have been far worse. It is the formation of linguistic states that has allowed India to escape what might have been a worse fate still. If the sentiments of the native speakers of Telugu, Marathi, et al. Had been disregarded, what might have been here was one language, 14 or 15 nations. Take the example of your own state, or any other state that was affected by linguistic reorganization. Write a short note for or against the argument given by the author here on the basis of that example. Decentralization in India. We noted above that federal governments have 2 or more tiers of government. We have so far discussed the 2 tiers of government in our country. But a vast country like India cannot be run only through these 2 tiers. States in India are as large as independent countries in Europe. In terms of population, Uttar Pradesh is bigger than Russia, and Maharashtra is about as big as Germany. Many of these states are internally very diverse. There is thus a need for power sharing within these states. Federal power sharing in India needs another tier of government below that of the state governments. This is the rationale for decentralization of power. Thus resulted a 3rd tier of government, called local government. When power is taken away from the central and state governments and given to local governments, it is called decentralization. The basic idea behind decentralization is that there are a large number of problems and issues that are best settled at the local level. People have better knowledge of the problems in their localities. They also have better ideas about where to spend money and how to manage things more efficiently. Besides, at the local level it is possible for the people to directly participate in decision-making. This helps to inculcate a habit of democratic participation. Local government is the best way to realize one important principle of democracy, namely local self-government. The need for decentralization was recognized in our Constitution. Since then, there have been several attempts to decentralize power to the level of villages and towns. Panchayats in villages and municipalities in urban areas were set up in all the states. But these were directly under the control of the state governments. Elections to these local governments were not held regularly. Local governments did not have any powers or resources of their own. Thus, there was very little decentralization in effective terms. A major step towards decentralization was taken in 1992. The Constitution was amended to make the 3rd tier of democracy more powerful and effective. It is now constitutionally mandatory to hold regular elections to local government bodies. Seats are reserved in the elected bodies and the executive heads of these institutions for the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. At least 1/3 of all positions are reserved for women. An independent institution called the State Election Commission has been created in each state to conduct panchayat and municipal elections. The state governments are required to share some powers and revenue with local government bodies. The nature of this sharing varies from state to state. A boy says, "So, we are like a three-tier coach in a train. I always prefer the lower berth." Rural local government is popularly known by the name Panchayati Raj. Each village, or a group of villages in some states, has a Gram Panchayat. This is a council consisting of several ward members, often called Panch, and a president or Sarpanch. They are directly elected by all the adult population living in that ward or village. It is the decision-making body for the entire village. The Panchayat works under the overall supervision of the Gram Sabha. All the voters in the village are its members. It has to meet at least 2 or 3 times in a year to approve the annual budget of the Gram Panchayat and to review the performance of the Gram Panchayat. The local government structure goes right up to the district level. A few Gram Panchayats are grouped together to form what is usually called a Panchayat Samiti, block, or mandal. The members of this representative body are elected by all the Panchayat members in that area. All the Panchayat Samitis, or mandals in a district together, constitute the Zilla Parishad. Most members of the Zilla Parishad are elected. Members of the Lok Sabha, members of the Legislative Assembly, MLAs of that district, and some officials of other district-level bodies are also its members. The Zilla Parishad chairperson is the political head of the Zilla Parishad. Similarly, local government bodies exist for urban areas as well. Municipalities are set up in towns. Big cities are constituted into municipal corporations. Both municipalities and municipal corporations are controlled by elected bodies consisting of people's representatives. The municipal chairperson is the political head of the municipality. In a municipal corporation, such an officer is called the mayor. A girl says, "Prime Minister runs the country. Chief Minister runs the state. Logically, then, the chairperson of the Zilla Parishad should run the district. Why does the DM or collector administer the district?" What do these newspaper clippings have to say about the efforts towards decentralization in India? An experiment in Brazil. A city called Porto Alegre in Brazil has carried out an extraordinary experiment in combining decentralization with participative democracy. The city has set up a parallel organization operating alongside the municipal council, enabling local inhabitants to take real decisions for their city. The nearly 13 lakh people in the city get to participate in making the budget for their own city. The city is divided into many sectors, or what we call wards. Each sector has a meeting, like that of the Gram Sabha, in which anyone living in that area can participate. There are also meetings to discuss issues that affect the entire city. Any citizen of the city can participate in those meetings. The budget of the city is discussed in these meetings. The proposals are put to the municipality, which takes the final decision about them. About 20,000 people participate in this decision-making exercise every year. This method has ensured that money cannot be spent only for the benefit of colonies, where rich people live. Buses now run to poor colonies, and builders cannot evict slum dwellers without first resettling them. In our own country, a similar experiment has taken place in some areas of Kerala. Ordinary people have participated in making a plan for the development of their locality. This new system of local government is the largest experiment in democracy conducted anywhere in the world. There are now about 36 lakh elected representatives in the panchayats, municipalities, and other local bodies across the country. This number is bigger than the population of many countries in the world. Constitutional status for local government has helped to deepen democracy in our country. It has also increased women's representation and voice in our democracy. At the same time, there are many difficulties. While elections are held regularly and enthusiastically, Gram Sabhas are not held regularly. Most state governments have not transferred significant powers to the local governments, nor have they provided adequate resources. We are thus still a long way from realizing the ideal of self-government. Let us find out. Find out about the local government in the village or town where you live. If you live in a village, find out the names of the following: your panch or ward member, your sarpanch, your panchayat samiti, the chairperson of your Zilla Parishad. Also find out when the last meeting of the Gram Sabha took place and how many people took part in it. If you live in an urban area, find out the following: the name of your municipal councillor, the municipal chairperson or mayor, the budget of your municipal corporation or municipality, the major items on which money was spent. Exercises. 1. Locate the following states on a blank outline political map of India: Manipur, Sikkim, Chhattisgarh, Goa. 2. Identify and shade 3 federal countries, other than India, on a blank outline political map of the world. 3. Point out one feature in the practice of federalism in India that is similar to, and one feature that is different from, that of Belgium. 4. What is the main difference between a federal form of government and a unitary one? Explain with an example. 5. State any 2 differences between the local government before and after the constitutional amendment in 1992. 6. Fill in the blanks. Since the United States is a type of federation, all the constituent states have equal powers, and the states are vis-a-vis the federal government. But India is a type of federation, and some states have more powers than others. In India, the government has more powers. 7. Here are 3 reactions to the language policy followed in India. Give an argument and an example to support any one of these positions. Sanjita, the policy of accommodation has strengthened national unity. Arman, language-based states have divided us by making everyone conscious of their language. Harish, this policy has only helped to consolidate the dominance of English over all other languages. 8. The distinguishing feature of a federal government is: a national government gives some powers to the provincial governments. B. Power is distributed among the legislature, executive, and judiciary. C. Elected officials exercise supreme power in the government. D. Governmental power is divided between different levels of government. 9. A few subjects in various lists of the Indian Constitution are given below. Group them under the Union, State, and concurrent lists. Subjects: A. Defense, B. Police, C. Agriculture, D. Education, E. Banking, F. Forests, G. Communications, H. Trade, I. Merit. Union list, State list, concurrent list. 10. Examine the following pairs that give the level of government in India and the powers of the government at that level to make laws on the subjects mentioned against each. Which of the following pairs is not correctly matched? A. State government, State list. B. Central government, Union list. C. Central and state governments, concurrent list. D. Local governments, residuary powers. 11. Match list I with list II and select the correct answer using the codes given below. List II. 1. Union of India A, Prime Minister. 2. State B, Sarpanch. 3. Municipal Corporation C, Governor. 4. Gram Panchayat D, Mayor. Options: D, B, C, B, C, B, D, C, C, D, C, D, C, D, B. 12. Consider the following statements. A. In a federation, the powers of the federal and provincial governments are clearly demarcated. B. India is a federation because the powers of the union and state governments are specified in the Constitution, and they have exclusive jurisdiction over their respective subjects. C. Sri Lanka is a federation because the country is divided into provinces. D. India is no longer a federation because some powers of the states have been devolved to the local government bodies. Which of the statements given above are correct? A, B, and C. B, A, C, and D. C, A and B only. D, B and C only.